The better part of this show is still coming to you live from Durban ICC. That is whereby the World Water Day Summit or conference is taking place for the very first time on African soil, like I said earlier on. Let us just go back to Leanne. She's standing by.
All right, thanks so much, Palesa. Yes, indeed, this I suppose, is for the world. This is where the main focus of attention is, even though there are going to be lots of events taking place in the different countries in the world. You know, this is a global day, the 22nd of March being declared the UN Water World Day. So it's a massive event, but this being, of course, the center of it all, and the rest of the world following suit. So it's a wonderful thing. So broadcasting from the Durban ICC on this International Water Day. Joining us now is Nomvula Mokonyane, who of course is the Minister of Water and Sanitation here in South Africa, to talk about the importance of South Africa being the host, but more importantly, the issue of water and the theme of wastewater for this year's particular day. Good to have you, Minister. Thank you very, very much for being with us on the program.
Thank you, Len, and morning to the viewers as well.
This is a major event for South Africa to be hosting, no doubt. I mean, the world is watching. Suddenly, South Africa is again under the spotlight, and this time at a time when we find ourselves struggling with water. Talk to us about what this means for South Africa.
It's the first time that we have a conference of this magnitude being hosted in Africa, in South Africa in particular, focusing on the use of grey water as an untapped resource. Given the realities of climate change, and worse for us as a country that has been able to survive over the last 4 years with a severe drought that we have ever seen over more than 100 years. But also the world has recognized our interventions, and hence His Excellency President Jacob Zuma is one of the 12 heads of state who are part of the advisory, the high-level panel that advises the UN Secretary on the issues of water and sanitation, which is the Sustainable Development Goal number 6. It therefore means that there is something that South Africa is doing, but also there is something that the world wants to take South Africa along on, to make sure that, amongst other things, we contribute in line with the theme that President Zuma has been assigned amongst the 12 heads of state to look at sustainable provision and reliability of water and sanitation to 10 billion people of the world. So he is the face of that particular program, and that has come because in South Africa we've been able to have what we call the war on leaks. We've got an Adopt the River. We here in KwaZulu-Natal that is going to its 5th year with the drought, but we have never had a severe loss of life and crop. We've been able to adapt. We've also adapted towards the use not of wastewater, of grey water that is water that has been used before, being able to recycle it. We've also been able to explore desalination. We've been able to change the methods of irrigation. In Gauteng, we've seen the private sector, some of the multinational companies being able to use rain harvested water for them to augment what they have been able to do. And out of this, there will come a declaration that will be presented by the President, and it will be beamed throughout the world. The United Nations is not having anything in its precincts. The main event of the United Nations is what President Jacob Zuma will be hosting. He's here not as the President of South Africa, but a representative of the world on this particular day. Quite a magnificent thing, but also an honor for us, South Africa.
It certainly is. I mean, it really is when we see where South Africa stands at the center of all of this. But as you say, I mean, we are sitting in a very difficult situation as a country. KwaZulu-Natal, I mean, you're putting the amount of years to how much we've got at the water catchments in KwaZulu-Natal, the Western Cape, Gauteng and Nelson Mandela Bay are so highly stressed. How are you managing this situation? And obviously it's something that can't be dealt with overnight, but in future, what are the plans in place?
The immediate thing is behavioral change of me and you.
Yeah.
in the agricultural sector, on domestic use, and in any other thing, including in sport. But also appreciating that water is a scarce resource. No single drop of water must be left as waste. It must be used to generate energy, to generate additional volumes of water. We need to look at innovation. It is not all about flushing for you to have a dignified sanitation solution. We'll see the exhibitions later today. President Zuma, together with the United Nations delegation, they'll be going around here showing how you can survive with a 1.5 liter cistern to do what we are now doing, you South Africans with more than 6 liters of water, and yet to visit the toilet at least 5 times a day. Young and old, we all use the volume. The second one is to also show how through grey water, which is wastewater, you can actually generate new products for agriculture, for energy generation, as well as how water itself can generate energy through hydro. And the other thing that is important for all of us as South Africans is to go into the reality that we need different water mix. Boreholes, recycle what you use at home, save, close the leaks, have a responsive leadership that we have seen here in South Africa in the midst of a very tight economic condition. We've not had new money. We had to play around with all those resources and reprioritize. And the last thing is to appreciate that water knows no boundary. So we need peace amongst nations. We need peace in Lesotho for us to have a successful Lesotho project. We need collaboration and cooperation with Namibia so that we can have the Orange Sinku River, which is a shared basin between ourselves and the people of Namibia. We need prosperity together with the people of Zimbabwe so that we can be able to share the transboundary basin, which is our Limpopo. We're going as far as Zambezi to share. And other things that have to do with peace. We know other nations are already at each other's throat, and one of the primary contestations are around issues of water and access and control to water. One of the thematic sessions that we'll be having, we'll have some of the Middle East countries sharing with all of us on issues of water and security, including coexistence. There will be, of course, issues coming from Jordan. There will be issues coming from Egypt. And there will also be issues thinking about the women and children of Palestine under these conditions. So it is something that is very important. What is happening here today is something that after this, the report that will be launched, President Jacob Zuma as a member of the high-level panel will be presenting in the United Nations General Assembly as a report of the world on the theme and the responsibilities that he has been given. We also are exploiting the fact that he's the chair of the African Union's Commission on Infrastructure, because the success, as I've said, we do not have a South African source of water. We're working, we're collaborating with our sister countries in SADC and in the continent. So the infrastructure development across Africa is also going to be incorporated into this, because later in the week there will be a meeting of African ministers who are now looking at how we then do a report or a section that then becomes a single report about Africa to the United Nations.
Right, we leave it there for this morning, but it sounds, I think, giving it the gravitas that it deserves for South Africa to be hosting such a massive gathering of leaders that are here in the water industry and talking about wastewater. Do not waste a drop of water. And I think that's a theme that's going throughout the world this particular day, the 22nd of March. Minister, thank you very much for joining us here on the program. Nomvula Mokonyane.
Thank you very much, Leah. And it's now grey water, not wastewater, because it can't be wasted. It's a resource.
There you go. I was going to ask you the difference between the waste and the grey water. It's just a nicer name. I think everybody's got a different name for it. Someone else told me rather use used water, wastewater, grey water, whatever it is, do not waste water.